Your thoughts on what's been happening in Hull?
It makes me very angry personally that we keep going round and round this same rabbit hole. But on behalf of the victims who are caught up in this case again, it fills me with despair, really, that they need to come to an organisation like the Maggie Oliver Foundation in order to be supported in their battle to be heard. We were approached well over a year ago, initially by one of the victims in this case. We're now aware of 7. And they have been seeing this case on the verge of being dropped for a while. But we've supported them and we've tried to get their voices heard by Humberside Police without any joy. We approached Operation Hydrant, but we've seen lots of evidence, and I believe that other independent experts have now viewed the evidence. We feel that there's a lot of corroboration for these victims. They were children, very, very young children, and when the authorities are dismissing them and fobbing them off, it's a sadly familiar story to me, Colin. Even with Op Augusta, which I worked on in 2005, for 15 years, Greater Manchester Police insisted that there was no evidence of abuse of those children. It took 15 years and a lot of energy and a lot of fighting to get GMP to be forced to reopen that case. And, these are cases that we see time and time again. Even right now, we've got, the MP for Keighley, Robbie Moore. He's trying to get cases in and around Keighley looked at. We've got all the publicity in the media about Rotherham. They are very, I accept that they are very difficult cases to investigate. But when you consider that there are less than 2% of cases of rape again or abuse against women and girls, that even reported cases that make it to court, you have to question whether the authorities are only taking the absolutely easiest cases forward, and in that process are failing 98 out of every 100 victims. We see it repeatedly in the foundation. Virtually every day we're approached by another victim who tells us the same thing, that they're not being listened to, that they're being fobbed off, and we try and support them to be heard.
Maggie, we're not back where we started, are we, with this? As a younger reporter at the Yorkshire Post, going to interview Anne Cryer, the Labour MP, years and years ago, when she championed the cause of these young victims, and she felt that, she was accused of racism because a lot of those involved in these grooming gangs of Pakistani heritage, and a lot of the coverage, even today, I noticed, doesn't mention that fact, as if it's no longer germane. I don't know whether it is or not, but it's undeniable back then that there was a feeling of sensitivity around policing and police operations and evidential gathering and all that stuff, that nobody wanted to be labelled racist. Surely we're not back there. We've moved on from there, haven't we?
You know what, Colin? My work every day and the work of all the staff team and all the ambassadors in the foundation, I would say that we've never moved forward from that. I feel a bit like a broken record. We have a different case every week. We've got GMP in special measures because they failed to record 80,000 complaints of victims of abuse and serious crime. We've got lack of public trust in the Met after all the recent cases. We've got the Rotherham case, which constantly comes into the news because that's the only town or city where a full review was done. We have ICSA, which failed to look at the northern towns and cities and the grooming gangs. And in the foundation, we're dealing with dozens and dozens of cases of victims being failed. I mean, last week, I know it's a different channel, but Channel 4 did the rape debate, and there were 40 victims in that room, each one of which was saying clearly that they were not being listened to, that they were being failed. So I would say that we haven't really moved on. And my fear is that the public will just switch off from this, that they will be sick and tired of hearing of yet another case and another child and another victim being let down. And we mustn't let that happen. We have to take action. And I want to see the authorities being held to account when it becomes clear that they haven't investigated thoroughly and fully. With this case, I would argue that there is a lot of corroborating evidence. We've got, physical injuries. We've got pages and pages of school records detailing abuse. We've got diaries. These are very identical to the records that we had in Operation Span. And yet, from a total of well over 3 dozen victims in Oxpan in Rochdale, we saw 3 victims have their cases taken to court. That is more than 35 that did not have their cases taken to court. And that is a repeating pattern. So I really feel despair sometimes, but I want every victim watching this or survivor who feels on their own to know that they're not on their own. If you come to the foundation, we will try to help you to be heard, because I think the hardest thing for a victim is to feel on their own, to feel isolated. It isn't always about a prosecution that makes it easier for a victim to recover and move on with their lives. Sometimes it is being believed, it's being supported, it's knowing that there is somebody out there who will fight their corner with them. And that's what we're doing, not only with the girls in Hull, but with victims and survivors all around the country. So that's the message I'd like to give. And I hope that the publicity around this case will mean that Humberside Police do look more closely at this case again.